What if the most clever minds in Yosemite aren't human at all, but quietly watching, learning, and adapting, one step ahead every time? In this park, intelligence isn't measured by tools or language. It's measured by who eats, who survives, and who disappears without a trace. Yosemite National Park stretches across granite cliffs, deep forests, and open meadows in California's Sierra Nevada. To people, it's a place of beauty and escape. To animals, it's a living puzzle shaped by weather, seasons, and an ever-growing human presence. Each year, millions of people pass through Yosemite. They bring food, routines, vehicles, campsites, and habits. And the animals notice. Over time, some species have learned something remarkable. Humans are predictable. They follow schedules. They make mistakes. And they leave opportunities behind. This is the story of the animals in Yosemite that have learned to read human behavior and use it. The American black bear has lived in Yosemite for thousands of years. Long before roads or lodges, bears survived by reading the land. They followed seasonal cycles, moving with ripening berries, acorns, and insects. But the arrival of humans introduced a new kind of food source. One that didn't move. One that didn't hide well. Early visitors stored food in tents, backpacks, and cars. To a bear, this wasn't chaos. It was a pattern. Bears began to associate certain smells with high rewards. Cooking areas, picnic tables, vehicles parked overnight. At first, these encounters were rare. But bears are observant animals. They learn by watching, remembering, and testing outcomes. A bear that succeeded once was more likely to try again. And each attempt taught it something new. A zipper meant resistance, not failure. A door handle meant leverage. A human campsite meant calories without long foraging. Over generations, this knowledge didn't disappear. It spread. Young bears followed their mothers. They watched where she walked, where she paused, where she returned. They learned which human behaviors meant food was near. Not by instinct alone. By experience. Today, Yosemite's black bears are known for a specific kind of intelligence. They can open car doors. They can peel back window frames. They can recognize poorly stored food from a distance. They don't rush. They don't panic. They wait until humans are gone. Then they act. What looks like boldness is actually patience. And what looks like luck is learned behavior refined over time. High above the trails and campgrounds, ravens glide on air currents. Their calls echo off granite walls. To many people, they're just background noise. But ravens are among the most intelligent birds on Earth. In Yosemite, they've found a new role. Observer. Ravens watch people closely. They notice patterns in movement and attention. They know when backpacks are unattended. They know when food is briefly exposed. They understand timing. A hiker stops to adjust a boot. A family sets down a lunch bag. A climber turns their back for just a moment. Ravens don't act immediately. They wait. They study reactions. They test boundaries. Over time, they've learned how humans respond. Which gestures mean danger. Which ones mean distraction. They've learned how to unzip packs. How to tear into containers. How to work together when necessary. One raven may distract. Another may approach from behind. Not out of aggression. Out of calculation. Researchers studying ravens have found they can remember individual human faces. In Yosemite, this matters. A raven that's been chased away remembers. It avoids that person next time. But it won't avoid their unattended food. Ravens don't see humans as threats or allies. They see variables. And in Yosemite's crowded landscape, variables can be solved. The ground in Yosemite's meadows is alive with movement. California ground squirrels dart between rocks and trees. At first glance, they seem impulsive. But their behavior tells a different story. Squirrels live in a world of constant risk. Predators. Weather. Competition. To survive, they must make quick decisions with limited information. Humans have added another layer. Food appears suddenly. Disappears just as fast. But squirrels have adapted. They've learned human schedules. They know when picnic areas are busiest. They know which trails produce crumbs. They know which trash cans are worth checking, and which ones are sealed. Some squirrels wait near footpaths, not because they expect food directly, but because dropped items are common. Others stash food in places humans rarely notice. Under benches. Behind rocks. Near fence posts. This isn't random. It's strategic. Studies have shown that squirrels in high human areas display stronger spatial memory than those in quieter environments. They remember exact locations. They adjust behavior based on past success. They're not just reacting. They're calculating. In Yosemite, squirrels that fail don't survive long. Those that learn quickly thrive. And over time, learning becomes the difference between life and loss. Coyotes are masters of flexibility. In Yosemite, they live at the edge of forests, meadows, and developed areas. They're rarely seen up close. That's intentional. Coyotes understand visibility. They know where humans look. They know where humans don't. At night, they move through open spaces. At dawn, they retreat. They use roads as travel corridors, not because they like pavement, but because it's efficient. They cross where traffic slows. They wait when it doesn't. Coyotes have learned to interpret human sounds. Car doors. Voices. Footsteps. They can tell the difference between a passing hiker and someone stopping nearby. This allows them to hunt without confrontation. To move without drawing attention. In areas with frequent human activity, coyotes adjust their schedules. They become more nocturnal. More cautious. More precise. They don't challenge humans. They outthink them. By avoiding conflict altogether. Insight/turning point. What connects these animals isn't boldness or aggression. It's learning. Yosemite's smartest animals aren't trying to dominate humans. They're adapting to them. Every interaction becomes data. Every success becomes a lesson. Every failure becomes a correction. Humans often believe intelligence looks like invention. But in Yosemite, intelligence looks like restraint. Knowing when to approach. Knowing when to retreat. Knowing that patience often brings greater rewards than force. The animals that outsmart humans aren't breaking rules. They're reading them. Yosemite is often described as untouched wilderness. But it's more accurate to call it shared space. A place where human routines intersect with ancient survival strategies. The animals that thrive here are not the strongest or the loudest. They're the most attentive. They watch. They learn. They adapt. And as long as humans continue to visit Yosemite, the park's wild residents will continue to evolve alongside them. Not as rivals, but as quiet problem solvers shaping their future one observation at a time. In Yosemite, some of the smartest decisions happen where humans aren't looking at all. The animals that truly outsmart people don't confront them. They quietly move around them, shaping outcomes long before anyone notices. As Yosemite developed roads, lodges, and campsites, the park didn't become less wild. It became more complex. For animals, this new landscape introduced artificial boundaries, noise, light, and movement. But it also introduced predictability. Humans tend to repeat behaviors. They arrive at similar times. They travel the same routes. They rest in the same places. Animals that could recognize these patterns gained an advantage. Not by challenging humans directly, but by adjusting their behavior just enough to stay ahead. This chapter explores the animals that have mastered avoidance, timing, and subtle control, species that succeed not by taking risks, but by understanding human limits. Mule deer are among the most visible large animals in Yosemite. They graze in meadows, cross roads, and move through forest edges. To many people, they seem calm and unafraid. But this calm is carefully managed. Mule deer are experts at maintaining the right distance. Close enough to access open feeding areas. Far enough to avoid threat. They've learned that humans rarely pursue. That noise doesn't always equal danger. That stillness can be safer than flight. In areas with frequent visitors, mule deer reduce sudden movements. They lift their heads. They watch. They wait. If a human continues on a predictable path, the deer stays. If the path changes, the deer adjusts. This behavior conserves energy. Running is costly. In winter months, wasted energy can mean starvation. By learning when not to flee, mule deer increase their chances of survival. They also learn geography quickly. They know where roads curve, where traffic slows, where sight lines are limited, when crossing is safest. This isn't instinct alone. Young deer observe adults. They follow their routes. They learn which spaces humans dominate, and which they merely pass through. Over time, deer that misjudge distance are removed from the population. Those that judge correctly remain. In this way, awareness becomes inherited not through genes, but through learned behavior passed from one generation to the next. Mountain lions are among Yosemite's most elusive residents. Many people visit the park for decades without ever seeing one. That's by design. Mountain lions rely on stealth, patience, and control. Human presence complicates this. Noise disrupts hunting. Movement changes prey behavior. But mountain lions adapt by shifting not their territory, but their timing. They become most active when humans are least predictable. Late night. Early dawn. They avoid trails during peak hours. They move through dense cover near open spaces. They use elevation to their advantage, observing from above. Mountain lions also learn prey behavior in human-influenced areas. Deer near roads behave differently. They linger longer. They feel safer around people. Mountain lions notice this. They adjust their approach routes. They wait for moments when human attention is elsewhere. Not because they understand rules, but because they understand patterns. Studies using GPS collars have shown that mountain lions alter movement paths to avoid direct encounters, even when it means longer traveled distances. This choice reduces risk. It preserves secrecy. In Yosemite, survival often depends on remaining unseen. And mountain lions are experts at reading the landscape of attention. Gray foxes occupy a middle ground. Not as large as coyotes. Not as bold as raccoons. But exceptionally adaptable. In Yosemite, gray foxes adjust their diet seasonally. They eat small mammals, insects, fruits, and carrion. Human presence adds new variables. Food waste. Altered prey movement. Artificial light. Gray foxes have learned to navigate these changes without becoming dependent. They approach developed areas briefly. They retreat quickly. They remember which locations are safe at which times. Unlike species that rely on speed, gray foxes rely on timing. They move when trails are empty. They avoid repeated exposure. They don't return to the same spot too often. This reduces the chance of being noticed. It also reduces competition. Foxes that linger too long attract attention from larger predators. By limiting visibility, gray foxes keep options open. They don't dominate space. They borrow it. And then they give it back. This flexible approach allows them to thrive in areas where more aggressive species fail. Raccoons are often associated with human environments. In Yosemite, they live near water sources, forest edges, and developed areas. They're known for dexterous paws and curiosity. But curiosity alone doesn't explain their success. Raccoons are problem solvers. They test objects. They remember outcomes. They recognize patterns of access. In Yosemite, raccoons don't rely on strength. They rely on persistence. If a food container resists, they leave. They return later. They test again. They remember which designs fail and which succeed. They also observe human reactions. A raccoon chased away during the day is more likely to return at night. One startled by sudden noise learns to pause longer before approaching. Raccoons don't escalate conflict. They avoid it. By doing so, they extend their lifespan. They reduce injury. They increase learning opportunities. In a park where intervention can mean removal, subtlety becomes survival. Smaller birds in Yosemite face constant challenges. Food availability shifts rapidly. Competition is intense. Human presence changes insect behavior and plant growth. Some bird species have learned to exploit edges. Parking lots, trail borders, picnic clearings. These areas attract insects and seeds. They also attract people. But birds adjust flight paths. They feed quickly. They retreat to cover. They use structures as shields, not as nesting sites, but as temporary tools. This behavior minimizes exposure while maximizing reward. Birds that linger too long attract predators. Those that move efficiently succeed. Over time, efficiency becomes habit, and habit becomes advantage. Insight/turning point. Across species, a pattern emerges. The animals that outsmart humans are not the ones that challenge them directly. They're the ones that understand limitation. They know humans control certain spaces, but not all of them. They know attention fades, that routines repeat, that avoidance often yields more than confrontation. In Yosemite, intelligence isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It works quietly, in margins and moments. It looks like waiting instead of rushing, choosing absence over presence, turning complexity into opportunity. Yosemite is shaped by granite, ice, and time. But it's also shaped by learning. Animals here are not frozen in instinct. They are active participants in a changing environment. Each generation absorbs new information. Each season rewrites the rules. The animals that thrive aren't those that overpower their surroundings. They're the ones that understand them. And in Yosemite, where humans come and go, the quiet thinkers remain, moving through the landscape with precision, patience, and an intelligence that rarely needs to be seen to succeed.